2 years ago, we had no bass player, we had no drummer. Here's the story of Nick and Seb as I see it. I call up my friend who's a drummer for a big hard rock metal band. I explain to him what's going on. He says, okay, I got the dude for you. That dude can't do it because he's working for some other big rock band. But he says, hey, here's my high school buddy, Seb. This dude's a badass and I think he'd work for your band. So I call up Seb, and a week later, we're totally fucking jamming. Then I call up another friend of mine who I play music with. I'm explaining that we need a bass player, and she says, I know this dude that I went to school with. He's a fucking badass bass player. So I call him up, Nick comes down, and we start playing.
I mean, Nick and I are basically the first guys they auditioned.
We didn't want to do the audition thing. We didn't want to do the tryout thing. We didn't want to broadcast it. We didn't want to be a public thing.
It could have been a total disaster, but it totally worked out, you know?
One thing's for sure, bringing in 2 new guys it's scary because we've come such a long way as a band at this point.
We didn't want to have to hire session dudes, and we found 2 guys that became our friends, became our co-musicians. They came from different universes as far as I was concerned, you know.
Should we talk about astronomy?
Pete and I come from a very, very particular background. Sebastian comes from a very particular background, as does Nick.
And a lot of the stuff that I've been doing in the last couple of years is more electronic music.
There's a jazz musician turned metal guy.
I think in some ways all 4 of us have very different approaches, have a very different starting point, but somehow we've all ended here.
You know, we went to that little practice space, and from downbeat 1 with them, I was like, yeah, these guys are the real deal.
When you have a band with 4 members, there's a certain kind of dynamic that happens. When you remove 2 members and then replace them with 2 other members, you're really bringing in a new 50% of your band. That's a lot of new personality.
As far as bass player and drummer is a pretty important thing, definitely for me.
They have opinions and they're good musicians and they're weighing in.
We're 4 dudes that are very opinionated, and I mean that as a good thing.
After talking to John, checking out the music, loved it, I was like, if I don't like the drummer, will I still do this?
I mean, I know what you're saying, but I also think that the fact that I've been around, you know, and Nick has too, you know, he's younger, he's been around, it kind of like, in a way, makes it easier. You have an attitude about things. You don't have, you know, a chip on your shoulder, you don't have anything to prove sometimes maybe, you don't have this weird sort of like, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but you know what I'm saying.
With the wrong drummer, it could be pretty long 2-hour set if we don't get along on stage, so.
We used to have these things that they weren't really discussions as much as they were flat out refusals of ideas and you know, blunt words.
You know, you can be like, well, I think that riff sucks. And then it's like, gets really weird. I mean, that didn't happen, but.
I've heard ideas called stupid before.
I mean, communication is very important in a band for all of you, you know, people joining bands. You know, and a way to communicate that's like honest without being a dighead about it, you know, is important.
But luckily, him and I make sense together, which was a big relief.
As it turns out, cooperative environment ends up yielding, to me at this point, feels like a much, much better result. Beyond that, there's this personal side to Baroness where I feel that we operate the strongest when we've got the sum of parts working. In other words, each personality lends 25% to the performance. And we've got 2 guys who are total performers, who are total musical badasses. And through some miracle of alchemy, they both happen to click in this very, very impressive, very unique way.
Yeah, on a personal level and as musicians, they really mesh well together. They're like 2 new buddies, you know? We like put these guys in a room and they became friends.
Which is great and incredible and almost a necessity for us because Pete and I have had a connection for over 20 years now. So Pete and I we know that we're a match.
We needed people who weren't brand new to all this.
What we were concerned with was, is the drummer going to match with us individually? Is he going to match with the bass player? Is the bass player going to match with, you know, like all these sort of subtle variables that need to work together in order for any one song to work out on its own on stage.
You know, these guys are locking in with us and learning, you know, how John and I are, not only as guys on a personal level, but as guys on the stage too, so it's good.
It's breathtaking to me to step outside of the stage and the tour and watch those two guys play together, because you would think that they've had years and years together. They clicked so immediately and in such a steadfast way that there's simply no denying it. They're like, who knew these dudes could play metal? We are all dedicated and focused on like the exact same thing.
And we're all on the same page. We all feel the same way, you know?
Musically, because I love playing with these guys so much, yeah. Felt at home. These guys have the same mindset that I like. They're not fucking around. They really come to play no matter what, how many people are in the room or what the situation is.
You know, I'm nothing but grateful towards everybody and anybody who's helped Pete and I out.
You know, I don't think it's too often you can replace two people in your band like that and have it work out just right off the bat like clockwork, but it's, you know, it seems to be doing just that right now.